All right, we're going to align the props today. So a little bit of propping support. The bolster is across the practice space and two blankets at the back and a stack a little bit lower than the bolster. This is actually one where you could practice with a round bolster for this first pose. So if you decide to swap it out for a round and just try it out with your rib movement, you could give that a try. Otherwise, one flat standard bolster is good. The block is flat in front, and you'll have all your props like sandbag, ball, belt. I think that's it. And an extra block to the side. So you're going to sit so that you, in some way you do sit on the little block, and the block is at my tailbone, right? So I have the block here, and then my bolster is at my ribs. So I do find it to be a little awkward to begin the process of setting this up. So when you lower back, this is where you might go, okay, my brain is back on the blanket. Maybe you turn the block a little higher and just see. But I find that comfort is good to acquire in my practice. So I'm just working on claiming that reach with my rib cage when I'm breathing. So you decide if you want to place that block a little higher, make sure that you're on it, right? It's not halfway on your rear. And you can always just stretch the legs down. I do want you to have a little wall space today for certain. And if I reach the legs down, if this starts to feel, oh, I'm starting to kind of ease my abdominals, they really spread and stretch and the organs get a nice reach, you can stay with the block like that. Today's practice is really going to be a blend in the beginning of quite a bit of chest, circulation, upper lungs, and then we're going to blend right into the hips. So if you have your sand and your block is any height, I'm just going to find how this feels for this one. My block is at the second setting, but some of us will have it low. And then as the sand is on the thigh lids, set the sand here, thigh lids for you, or ribs. Okay, it would be really where the ribs intersect that the sand would be placed, if it's indeed there. Now, the weight of your head is likely going to be pressing into the blankets, but here's the interesting, if you feel it starting to really round, just slide one of the blankets back. Okay, so you want to feel that if you were to reach to the sides of the throat, the back throat, that area is more in an arch than it's in rounding, kind of flexing at the brainstem. Okay, let your arms spread open, the chest, relax the shoulders back. And then begin to receive the circulation from the shape. And bend the knees. You certainly could change the block, right? Remember, if the block feels like it's kind of okay, but maybe a little too high into my tailbone, just come back down. Be a little careful when you switch it if you do, because your hamstring can get an extra deep contraction. I don't want us to pull the hamstring in the beginning of the experience. With the shoulders back and the chest wide, just recognize how we start with reorganizing the spaces that we breathe into. Feel the support of the props, and if you indeed can use the props to help you really massage into the center body with the breath. And this practice really is maintenance, right? It's like, you brush your teeth, take care of those. In this class, we do all kinds of things, right? We're kind of brushing the hips, the hamstrings, all these areas of the body that can use some support and an opportunity to get their kind of polishing, right? So in this one, we're lifting up in the chest, but we don't have to push it. We can just settle into the shape and respond with reflection. Okay, the legs can extend, the legs can bend. You can change it in the middle of the pose. In the final few moments, I want you just to notice that there is an idea here for the front of the thighs to stretch. So if the knees are bending, give it a try to stretch them down. And if it's difficult in your back, then take the feet a little wider. It almost always works. This isn't any different than if we were in a back bend with our chest down the floor and we're trying to lift our chest, we would take the feet out wider, right? Same thing. Your mind thinks I'm on my back, but your body's like, I'm arching, okay? So with the shoulders centering, the chest spreading, the breath inviting it through the rib cage, the belly. As you shift your legs, you'll walk the feet in, and we're going to kind of regroup here into the center line of the body. So, or this, I would say kind of the center piece maybe, the center pieces. So what I want you to motion in towards is reclining cobbler's pose. So we've got this little bit of extra reach with the chest expanding. And now just move the sand off for a moment. We're going to do cobblers with focusing on the back of the pelvic floor. So when you roll to the side, any side will do. You're going to roll to the side and then grab onto your blanket so that we don't have to grab your blankets, but make sure they're stacked. And then pivot your bolster up on top so you have a ramp. If you don't particularly like this way of building your ramp, you want a blanket on top, you can change it off and take the blanket on top of the bolster instead of this. Just easy. For me, it's just, I want to get into the next pose and not have too much time in between, fidgeting around. So when I lower back now, it's kind of the vine of the spine. And then we will need our blocks. Hesitate to use your belt on this. Just feel when your thighs stretch outwards, your action is to push the feet together. Push. Okay, so it's kind of an unusual sensation. If I do this without the blocks, which I think is a pretty necessary thing to attempt if you practice for a while, because it's kind of a sensation in the pelvis that's like, where is that? It's kind of the back of the pelvic floor, if you can even think, where is that? It's deep, deep pelvic work. So you might try, just use your stability and strength in the pelvis to push the feet together. The knees kind of bounce up. So what? I'm not interested in how my knees are responding as much as I can feel this inner leg, but deeper inside. So if you were to touch on the inner thighs, they're probably completely taut, right? They're definitely tensed up here. And if I use the blocks, I kind of relax the pelvic floor a bit. So for most of us, right, we're focusing on trying to enable those areas to have some tone. But most of us know we're kind of hypertone there as well. That's another topic for another session. But give a few moments where you are pushing the feet, whether you use blocks or not, just be sure you push. You're pushing your feet together until you're fatigued. Until you're like, ugh. Right? And then the pelvic floor, all those areas in there that are going to soften up a bit here. Take a ball and let's place it to the outer left hip. So I want you to move the block away. You're going to lift up the left knee and just kind of scooch the ball under that upper outer left thigh. Let that knee release out to the side one more time. Okay. Okay. Kind of feel how the side of the left foot is passive. I'm hoping you can keep that as we go along here. So that left inner thigh has a little bit more stretch. A little bit more stretch here. Okay, now bring the left knee to point up. Keep the ball stuck next to your upper outer left thigh. Okay. And then we're going to lift the right foot to the left knee and lean the knees over to the left, just like you've done many times before. We got a ball to the upper outer thigh. Our knees shift left. Our right ankle is on the left knee, and we hold the right knee with the left hand. Okay, so after that kind of deeper pressure, you might find this doesn't feel as much as it usually does on my hip. It might not be true for you, but if you try to do that deep pressure, it's really great circulation in areas that support our obviously pelvic floor, but also around the knee. So feeling the ribs centering, stretch the right arm maybe back besides your head. I like to do this one lately, putting my arm out on a block. Block is about mid-height, just besides my mat, just let my arm rest. So, you know, I'm not exerting too much, but I'm also not super passive in the shoulder. Just hold it up so there's blood flow, relaxing back to my heart. Right, it's almost like you lift the veins, right, in the arm so the heart can have a little bit of rest when my arm is lifted. So feel the ribs moving, expanding. Feel the hip wondering how long here. Okay, hopefully the hip kind of starts to feel some circulatory kind of benefit here into the hip. Okay, now when you release the grip on the leg, okay, I want for actually probably hold it again. So you notice, where do you feel it in the right buttock, that area of the glute? You're going to feel like there's a stretch. There's probably a pretty easy site that you can point to where you feel it. It usually radiates out. So I want you to place the ball there. So bring the knees back center, walk the left foot in a little bit, take the ball. You can lift your hips up and place the ball to that right buttock area where you go, okay, that was kind of where the stretch was felt. And then you're going to just push into the ball, let the hips go side to side to massage and create that stretch reflex right into the hip. You can certainly just kick your right leg up, use a little bit of lower core muscles. Probably kicking both feet up would be difficult, but you're welcome to give it a try. But the idea is that you do push into the ball. So even both feet down is great. So just kind of swirl around that right hip, but the hips go side to side. So it's movement of the pelvis, dropping the weight of the pelvis down and then sway to the side. So you massage into the right glutes. Okay, maybe the border of the glute medius, right? That's maybe where you're feeling it, where it's tight. Okay, let's just leave the ball on that right side. So come on down. You're going to just maybe scoot the ball a little bit to the side so the right inner thigh can stretch out. Maybe no block there. Okay, so here I am on the back, the left knee still bending, my right inner thigh stretching out. If you decide you want to bring both feet together, knees out, you could try. Yeah, I'd recommend just keep it simple. So similar to the last side, maybe you did have your both knees out. So put the ball so it's definitely supporting your thigh. It's not requiring you to stretch further with the hip. So I like to do rebounding on this one a little bit. It's not a rebounder, I know, but a ball and the lift off from the ball gives me a little rebound in the tissue. And I'll be honest, on one side, when I lift and lower the knee from that inner leg, if you've ever done hip, strengthening work like clamshells, you know what I mean? It has a little shakiness, just a tiny kind of flutter. So feel if you can then just let that knee relax outwards, inner thigh kind of pulling. Pretty easeful, but you can just lay into it. Useful for this group, probably. Okay, now as you keep the center, like the lower abdominals in focus, so you can put your hands at the lower abdominals to say, okay, don't twist, just stay centered, do your best lower abdominal thing you can do. And then as you lift up through that right knee, you can feel the engagement right into the hip. Bring the right knee to point up, step the right foot down, and then lift the left ankle to cross to the right knee, and then just shift the knees to the right. You could put the ball higher. You could slide it lower on the side of the thigh, the right thigh. I like to have it actually pretty high up because I want to keep it real simple. So my bottom of my side of my right foot is sickled, so it's on the side. The right hand holds the left knee. And you certainly could put your left arm to reach back. You can use a block besides it. And just set the block out. And so still your arm has a little elevation. You can work with a simple balance of when you pull that left knee, that the left shoulder just guides to roll under. Even if you need to nudge the block a little farther outwards or closer in. And just feature anytime that you can that alignment of the in and out breath. Feel the breath moving in through the nose, the ribs expand, stretch the breathing muscles, and as you out breath, empty the lungs. And find a way that you're comfortable with your breath, but if that doesn't feel respectful for you, right, just focusing on nose breathing, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just finding what's a comfortable pace, however it moves in and out, but relaxing the face. You know, scan where the sensation is. It could be similar to the last hip, could be a little duller, right? It might be a little bit more surround hip feeling, not as kind of one area is a little bit warmer than the other. It's probably true. One hip's a little different. So when I let go, I'm going to bring the ball over there. Your hips are so intact, nothing's going to fall apart here, right? When you lift up, you're using your clearly a little bit of pelvic floor just to get that lift. Okay, and we got something under our back, so it makes it a little bit harder, right? We got to work against it. So as you push into the ball, let the hips move side to side. You can just keep it simple, tactile sensation, that sensory touch on the ball. But you know, the ball is obviously no surprise, it's a little circular. And the muscles, right, have some contour. Right, there's contour in all of it, right? The weave of them all, it's very cool. So the ball is, we'll call it just as interesting. So when you move, see if you can really use that circular, that round surface to play with. So the ball is responsive to your tissues. It's a responsive surface to push into. You can uncross the left leg, you can kick the leg up. But take a moment here when you're pushing down, and maybe you push and you lean the knees and then you kind of swipe the hip over. Yeah, use your, completely map it out how it feels like gravity flows into your hip. Okay, so we've done a little bit of kind of slip and sliding through the ribs, through the hips. Now we're going to get kind of bone central. Okay, so when we shift our weight now, just move the ball. If you like to put it at your sacrum for a moment, just to kind of gel the situation, kind of get the center of gravity kind of there, here and now, just be with it. That might pull the spine down in a wonderful way. Okay. I'm kind of thinking it would be nice to have some traction of this ball in where we're going next, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. Now, you're going to just simply move the ball to the side and let the knees swish side to side. Make sure your feet are in a hips distance or wider. I want your arms to go the opposite direction of the knees. They got to go the same direction. Yep, your arms are going to swing to the right when your knees go left. Your arms go left when your knees go right. The legs might feel like they're getting closer together, but likely they still stay apart, but they kind of lean to each other. Lean two legs. All right. So you've got two, right? It's kind of interesting here with the two sides, and now we start to move into kind of spinal, right? The bone central next. Okay, now as you come up, you decide. I like to be easy peasy on my spine, my neck. So I'm going to roll the other side because we've already rolled once, right? You want to go to the other side that you didn't go last time, and then come around into a table. Have a wall space behind you, and we'll take our bolster. So long those days when we do side stage so early. Now we're kind of onto a different path, at least for now. So hands down, feet push back to the wall, and then you'll have to gauge how your distancing is. I generally will put the bolster so when I stretch forward, my knees easily lift up. Okay, this is good back strength work. So if you find, well, the bolster seems too far back, you can always try it. But my hit on this is you need your bolster a little bit to the top of the thighs. You don't want it like all the way up here, then you've got no support here. So even a little bit will go a ways here because it just holds them up. Okay, we're just trying to find easy traction. Okay, now when you're here, I want you to bring your elbows wide so you kind of stack the arms, the forearms, and then feel how this naturally starts to get some reach of the heart. Okay. It's like your I dream of Jeannie moment here, right? So push into your feet, the balls of the feet. The heels can be moving away from the wall. If I push my heels into the wall, it's kind of an interesting feel here in my back. I think it's nice to try them both. But you're going to lift up with the chest. Breathe, push into the balls of the feet, inhale, and then exhale, relax your knees on the ground, and relax your head sequentially down on your hands. Okay, and simply stay here for a few moments and just breathe. Okay, feeling where the movement is in the ribs, the belly. Yeah, it's a whole lane here in the front of the body that we can actually use the bolster to support the circulation there. Yeah, see if you can just keep your head down. That means you don't have to lift it up here. And you'll push your feet into the wall. Lift the knees up. Okay, now one at a time, you'll stretch your right arm back, your left arm back, and let your head just gently lift up and just feeling more neutral in the spine. But so a neutral spine is probably not going to be a neutral neck. I mean, it's not going to be my head is touching the blanket like that. But I'm going to try to lift up and really use that special sensation here, pushing into the wall, reaching the chest forward. Lower your hands on the ground and lift up the chest, bring the knees down, keep the chest lifting, knees are down. If you can't put your knees on the ground, it's okay. Just bring your feet wider apart and the knees a little bit up off of the mat. Breathe, arching the spine. Okay, now as you lower down one more time, this is tummy time. We'll stretch the arms back besides the legs, palms towards the legs, shoulders back, chest it tries to open. Okay. This is an interesting one if we were to hold a belt or even a block between our hands, but let's just trust we're doing a reasonable amount of upper arm work too. If I try to get my arms to lift, just feel the reach of the fingers back. Okay, now lower down the hands. Bend the knees, bring the chest forward, come back to table, and then let's move our bolster off to the side. If you need a blanket under your knees, use one, right? You can always slide a blanket back now, but have some blocks close to the sides of your mat, and you're going to stretch the hips forward. So upward facing dog, reach the chest up. Feel that it's almost a wheel. Most of you know there's wheel pose. We don't do wheel pose in here because that's a full back bend, but this is, you can see why it's wheel, right? Why we call those wheel poses. Stretch the hips back, way back towards the feet, and then curl through the back. So rounding the back, cat pose, into up dog. If your wrists are bothering you, put your blocks under your hands, unless you have one of those wedges that makes it easier on the wrist. So stretch the hips back. Okay, and then feel that cat spine. Inhale, reaching. See if you can feel that peeling movement of the chest up. Let's do one more. So the important thing for me is, I'm still trying to figure it out too, is that when I come forward from cat pose, I'm trying to keep a reach from the lower abdominals, and then so slow go, and then lifting. And then there's a cutoff point where it's like, am I still connected there? So when you come back to hands, knees, lift up the knees, and see if you can just let the heels rest at the base of the wall. I like to have mine up, Oh, sure, maybe your heels touch the ground, but you might be missing out on some inverted quality just to have the extra lift. Yeah, if you're feeling ambitious and you want to bring your feet and walk them up the wall, go for it. But I find that just that lift of the hips, the heels up, the chest clearly between the arms to reach. Okay. All right, now as you stretch your head forward, we're going to try to take a step with our right foot. So if you need to come down on the knees and then step, that's great. If you want to try lunging, feel the quality when you step the right foot forward, the blocks under your hands. I think blocks are critical here for the kind of the ratio of support from my leg muscles and my pelvis into my spine. So maybe I made that up, but you know, like in the blocks. Okay, feel the wall that you can push away from. So push, feeling that right knee just above the ankle. Don't let it go over the toes. Okay. See if you can manage a little bit of stability, meaning managing. Got the feet pushing, and then I'm just going to try to bring my right hand up above my knee to my thigh. Start there. Okay. So a little bit of that bone central here. So if you decide to bring your left hand up to that right knee, or right thigh, sorry, don't push your knee, you might come up into a high lunge. If you're slip sliding away, you can always come down on the blocks and still get extra credit on your bones. But certainly taking a moment here just to thread through the bones, right? Deep, deep central position in the hip. Okay, so stability. So as you come forward, see if you can keep the ribs reaching. Ribs, ribs, ribs. And then lower the hands. Okay, can you feel the right thigh a little bit? Okay, step the left foot forward besides the right. Take a proper stance that works for you. Okay, this is where I'm going to throw out an idea that's up for grabs here. So you can take the forward bend, lowering down. Some people like to pitch this one, right? Hold the elbows, traction the spine. Some of you might decide, now come up slowly, remember, because your blood pressure has dumped from the last few poses. Come up slowly. You can turn to the wall, take a wall dog pose, push your hands, feel that great stretch of the back. Yeah, I like this variation. It's just good for my spine, the natural curves. But hey, if you want to take that forward bend, do it. If this feels better for you, deeper, it's a much more of an inversion, right? Head below the heart. I think they're both sensible. So as the spine takes its way, maybe it's flexing here, maybe it's arching with the hands at the wall. Let's take a few more breaths here. You choose, right? If you're using your blocks, I mean, there's always further to go, right? We're doing a simply maintenance. It's our maintenance session. Okay, now if you're at the wall, come back and join so that you're facing away from the wall. Have your feet close together. Step them together and notice when you bend the knees a little bit and you kind of lift your hands up from any blocks, where the proportions of weight come into your legs. Just kind of notice. For me, I'm pitching a lot into my lower leg bones and actually my knees, so I'm going to work on it. As you now take your right leg to step back, take the lunge like we did last time. We've got the back knee up off of the ground, and probably by now you can feel a little bit of circulation in the heart, blood flow's changing. You're required to have a pretty good set of lungs here as we work our way through. So manage that reach through that left knee. And I'm admittedly kind of doing a little bit short of a lunge. So if I was to push the knee forward and then stretch the left foot farther forward, I might get a little bit more out of it. Left hand above the knee, maybe right hand. Maybe you come up. Now use the wall. Push, push. It's great to have a wall. Okay. Now, as you keep the ribs trying to lift up, there's so much leg guarding, right, to do this that there might be an obvious choice to try to recruit something else. Like recruit obviously my psoas, my core land here. So feeling the pelvis, feeling the rib center. Breathe. Yep, your arms could fly up to the sky. You could be trying to just cope with what's going on here. And pose coping. Coping with life through poses. Okay, lower on down. And let's take a really, really good wide stance. So we're going to pivot to the right. So I want you to turn the left foot to the right. Take your blocks with you on over there. Don't worry about having your right foot at the wall. Some people like that, but then it's kind of not exactly balanced, is it, right? So you might find, okay, feet in a wide stance, and then let the hips stretch back. You can reach your hands down, as I mentioned, at the blocks. You can have the hips sending back, but as the chest starts to stretch down, maybe letting your head lower towards the floor. Yeah, feeling that width with the stance, feel the feet parallel or turned in a little bit. And gather your attention on the breath. You feel both the reach in the arms, the reach in the hips, and the movement required that kind of flutters with the back ribs and a little bit with the front ribs. Okay, take a few more moments. Okay, now I'm looking at my feet here, and I notice one's a little farther back than the other, just a little bit. So make sure that even if you slide your blocks in, you just kind of see, are my legs appearing, if my vision's good enough here. And I also can sense into my inner leg stretch. Okay, remember before we did the feet together, pushing together the soles of the feet? Try this with them on the floor. I mean, you can't push them together right now. But push down into the feet. Feel the inner thigh circulation. Okay? And see if you can stretch your arms a little farther forward as you're pushing down into the feet. And then you make that drawbridge here with the chest. Okay. For me, once I lower down, the foot pressure it reduces a little bit of the inner thigh pull. Okay, now walk the blocks in. You can actually move the blocks a little to the side on this one. You don't need them. But as we place the hands onto the ankles or the hands onto the floor, keep the lift of the hips. See if you can let your head lower down. Press into the feet. And then we'll turn to the left foot and we're going to take a movement in towards pigeon pose. So right heel stretches back to the wall. And then I want you to acquire your bolster. If it's not that easy to get it, just don't worry. You can come down to lunge and get your bolster. But you'll take a bolster. I think for many of us, the blanket under the knees is important, isn't it, on this one? So if you decide, I need my blankie, you can grab one of them. You don't need two on this necessarily, but you can put a blanket behind your bolster. If you don't want one, don't worry about it. You might go back in time and practice without one. Walk your left foot over to the right side. See if you can make the movement small so that you're kind of creating some circulation in the hip as you go across. And then let the left thigh, inner thigh stretch open. Let the left foot touch to the bolster. And then arching, but you might enjoy just coming right on down to the blanket or blocks. Some people prefer the firmness of blocks under the elbows instead. It's kind of interesting in the bones when you have something that's defined that you push into versus something that's kind of mushy. So it could be the floor, it could be a blanket, which is mushy. It could be blocks. But feeling that opportunity to circulate into that left hip. And really focus on the hip. So instead of trying to push your head higher, Maybe just kind of hunker down, whether your forehead leans a little bit. You can still feel the sizable quality of breathing, expanding the ribs. Exhale, letting go. Now, yes, you could put the back foot so it's a little bit higher, like step it up at the wall a little bit. You could do that. You can have the back foot touching down. And even a little bit of pressure into the wall can be nice with your foot. I don't know if it's nice, but I feel it a little bit of delivery into my left hip. Hip delivery. Nice work. So let's sweep the hip, brush the hip brushing, and then bring it to the other side. So come up center, and maybe you just focus on, okay, I'm on one side now. I'm going to sink into the right hip, left thigh stretches back. We're trying to also gain some sensation here in our waist, the arch in the back waist, the kidney area. And this is a good kind of preparatory shape for this low back area before we take twists, which should be in our mid back mostly. So we're kind of working on that nice arch in the lower spine. Breathing. And you decide if you come down. Now, if you feel like, well, here I am, and I'm feeling like this is very helpful in my upper back muscles, actually, right, these shoulder blade areas get some nice definition. But, your purpose here is to kind of get some flexibility and circulation in the hip area. So maybe coming down, and your head can lean, your head can stay lifted. You could close your eyes. But just feel the torso centered. Breathing slow. Ribs expand. And then just letting the spine feel what curve it wants to be in. So if you don't want to push the elbows down to arch deeper, you can just lower your head. Now scan the feel of this low back and the hips. Okay, so this is an area where we might have to bring a little bit of energy or pretend we have energy to help it to get supported. So sometimes a practice, especially the seated poses, I think as you mature, can be challenging to get the nice proper energy into them because we just get tired and things get achy and so forth. So to keep that discipline, let's just try. We'll just keep simple stuff. We're going to come around to sitting on that. We'll push into the right hip here and then come around so we can use the wall behind us for our twists. So what we're going to do is, they'll be really basic. You'll push the blocks away, uncross the legs, and then make sure you can touch the wall behind you. You don't have to move your blanket behind you at all. It's not, what I want you to do is touch a wall, not a blanket. So if you need to push back like I do, right, you might be close enough, or maybe you're too close because you got a really nice reach with your extremity. But as we come down, we'll play with this one a bit. Have a sandbag just to the right side of your mat, over here. Okay. Have a ball, maybe you'll use it. And we'll first just stretch the legs forward. And we're on the bolster for certain. Okay. Now, when you're lifting, the idea of trying to pull the seat out maybe helps some people, but I find just trying to sit so I'm almost just about feeling like I'm Humpty Dumpty, right? I'm just at the back. I feel like I'm about ready to fall down, but I'm going to try to use that lower lift of the belly. Okay, whether it's there or not. Cross the right leg over the left. Caution on the knee speak. So when I stretch the right foot up and cross it over, I don't really stretch my foot, but I put my right foot on the other side of the left leg. So it's the most basic, right? It's Marichyasana 1. Simple. We're getting there. So we have the left foot reaching. We have the lift of the chest. Okay, we've done this before with our foot at the wall. And so I want you to combine that you have the arch of the spine, wonderful arch, lower back is definitely has a little dent in it. And then when you hold onto that right knee, you're going to twist to the right and hook the left elbow to the side of the right knee and then reach back for the wall with your right hand and turn. Okay, now this should be helpful, right, to have the wall. But you might decide, nope, I'm going to hold my knee, cradle the right knee, and have a little less twist. Okay, that's fine. So the twist should come into the center of the spine, right? We should feel like, oh, it feels like pressure, right? But it's actually, right, helping with creating space, but my mind gets around this pressure. But if you're looking at the science of it, it's helpful for the discs, right? Plumping them up, getting that circulation. At a certain point in our lives, we don't have that fluid movement there. So sad. So we can do some things to help. So as you turn, just focus on this simple, swift movement in the chest. This chest is connected to thoracic vertebrae. So just consider that well done. Okay, we don't have to do this till we're fatigued in the back, but clearly the back has work to do. So the right hand reaches, at least mine does. Okay, the right hand is spreading out the fingers. I like to try to turn my hand, dial it. So it's like some people call this the shoulder clock, but I'm just doing the hand gesture, turning it a little to the right, from my thumb to my pinky. Some people will be happy with the heel of the hand at the wall. Okay, now come back center to release upper spine. We'll bring the right foot to the inside of the left thigh. We'll push the left thigh out, and then as you lower down your right knee, you can put a ball under it, or you can toss the ball under it, roll the ball, and place a sandbag on the top of the right thigh. Yeah, see if you can roll the ball to the other foot, and then I could kick it back. Okay, I like blocks instead of belt. It's easier in my hand. You know, as you age, you might, I should be easy on them when I can. So the block just adds a functional support, so you can stack them up besides your left leg. If you decide you want a blanket under the knee because it just feels like it's kind of hyperextending, you can just slide a blanket under and then lean to the left side. Okay, keep in mind quite a bit just happened with the twist, so you might go, wait, I need one more block. Don't worry how they look if they're stacked pretty, just that it's holding you. And then I want you to let your head tilt down to the left if you can, and let the right hand reach around to the sacrum or stretch it overhead. You choose. Yeah, after the rotation we just did, this might feel kind of strange, like, is this smart? Right, so we're trying to go slow into that, the muscles that you're creating that strength cycle into. So lean into the left side, stand on the right side, stretching through the waist. Take another breath. Okay, now when we come on up, try to center forward and then take the right leg front, sand goes over on the ground, left leg crosses over the right. So it is kind of a whole leg business that's moving, even though it's like a half a leg. You're using, right, back muscles just to keep that coordination of that left knee pointing up. So can I slide my foot down? Oh, sure, you could. Just realizing that farther up I bring the left foot, besides the right leg, the foot is likely turning in a bit, right? If you look down at your foot, right, it's not going to be turning out. Notice, because it's the alignment of the knee straight down to the ankle. So some things look like should I have my knee this way? Well, your foot's going to be in to help your knee. So flex the right foot, lift the heart, turn to the left. Keep going, but go slow. And then you can hug your left leg, or you can reach back for the wall first. Shoulder rolls back and in, or maybe it's back and down. And then use your ability with your inner thigh muscles to keep the foot pressing, the inner thigh lifting, and maybe hook the elbow to the side of that left leg. Okay, keep in mind this, we're using a bolster, so it's keeping that lumbar spine pretty stable because we have to sit up on it. A certain amount of height is required to sit up on something with your lower back. So feel when that cross section happens in the thoracic, right? Right. T11, T12, right? Those are going to be feeling like, okay, now we got to get busy. We got to start to create some breath there. And movement to the left and back. Rotate. Breathe slow. This is the kind of day we earn our side sage pose, I guess. Okay, you can always take a break. If something doesn't feel right, do something different. Perfect. Now the left hand might be like just splat. You just get it there. You might feel, okay, I'm going to turn the hand a little bit to the left, a little bit of that shoulder clock. Some of us are going to push the heel of the hand in. Be careful, right? It's not like if you feel more or it hurts more, it's better. Not so. The more you can find that inner lift is best for this one. So if you push into the wall and you round your back, no. Keep the hand just pushing the right amount. Even if you spider the hand, just the finger pads. Okay, now when you come back center, go slow, right? Be mindful because the back has been twisted, so we want the belly organs to be able to spread here, right? The squeezing circulation now. So right foot stretches out, left foot rises to the inside of the right thigh. Okay. All right, ball goes under the left knee and sand on the top of the left thigh. Okay, so get a feeling here when you have that support of the sand on the left thigh. Block happiness over to the right side of the leg. Yeah, good work. So feel when you lean. Again, if you don't want to use blocks, you could put your elbow on your leg. If you want to use just one, that's fine. If you want to stack them up, but when you lean to that block set or one block to the right, try to get a feeling of the turn of the waist. The last pose we did was a lot of spinal. Now a little bit more on the waist. So you can lean just a little bit, okay? If it bothers your knee, right, the stretching leg, you can always bend the knee like so, and then lean down to your blocks. So this is fine, right? This isn't so much about deep leg stretches, although it is a little bit of leg stretch. It's more about the center of gravity, ribs, breathing, muscles, okay? So feel that turn through the left side, breathing slow. Feel the waist rotate. Okay, you can let your head lower down to the right, but maybe having your head a little bit over to the left works good for you, like you did maybe a moment ago. So up to you. It's so up to you. So lean down towards that right leg, flexing the foot just a little bit. Okay, and just find that delivery of circulation in the midsection. Breathing wide. Slowly centering into the core. And so kind of keep this train of sensation in the waist because it's going down to the right, right? A little bit to the right. So when we come up, yeah, I know it's tempting to take a twist, but I'm just trying to get with that inner lift. It's simple. Keep working on the inner lift and take the sand over the right side of your mat. And now we're going to take side sage to the right because we're just going right. So we'll take the ball down and to the base of, well, far away from your wall. And then slide off your bolster. If you want to use a round bolster, you can add the round here instead of the flat. Okay. Think about that. Anything we're doing the rib stuff, not sitting on it, but the rib stuff, you can use the round one. So blankets, I think 2 is good. I probably will have 2, and then maybe today I just want 1, but I'll start out with the support. So I want some space between the bolster and the blankets. We know this. My hip is on the ground and my ball is under my left knee. Okay, there's half of us that probably use the ball and half that don't. Okay, so add your sand first as you lean into the bolster, and then let the left hand reach. If you're too close to the wall, I'm sorry. It's maybe our setup, because I'm so short that it's going to be fine for me. My limb is so short. But as you reach up, you can bring the hand higher. For those of us that have some shoulder details in the works here, trying to figure it out as time goes on, probably the higher up your arm will be better. So that's why the block under our hand is not as good as a wall, because you can like go with your moment. Like this is, you can customize it with the wall. Blocks are just one size, three heights, and that's it. So take the sand, now that your arm can actually reach a little higher than it normally can, right? You might take the sand a little bit farther up, right? You might be surprised at how much you can track the circulation into the ribs. Well, that feels great. It's not an easy feat, so I'm going to go without the wall. I decide on this one and just try to get my ribs to reach. Right, so this might be good for some. For some, we're going to be at the wall. The sand will be at the hip. For some, the arm won't be anywhere at the wall. It might be on your side. Okay, so to each his own. Let the balance be down to the right hip bone and spreading through the core of the body with the breath. Head is on your blanket. You can always add more if you decide this is just too low. You can fold it up one more time. If it feels too low, I recommend that you roll a little bit on the back of your head. Okay? If you're pushing down with your ear like you're trying to sleep or something, since this is apparently not sleeping session, you might just roll on the back of your head a little bit. You might massage the neck, breathing, ribs moving. Exhale, letting go. Great. And just give it a few more cycles of breath. You know, even if your hand is up at the wall, see if you can keep the shoulder just starting to rotate back. That weave of the pectorals into the armpit chest and then around into the rotator cuff can just feel really like there's mystery tightness around there, that weave from the upper back in towards the neck. So when you come out of this one, you might purposely just kind of roll the shoulder. You could get your sandbag and kind of put it down to the side and just maybe just roll the feeling of the shoulder, especially since you're on a bolster with the right side. Just feel a little bit of movement. You can shrug it back. It doesn't have to be big rolls. It's probably a little tired. Okay. So from all that energetic alignment, right, we'll start to switch to the other side. Let's keep it real simple how we navigate one side to the next side. Not too much in between stuff. But I like to, in between the sides, I like to use the ball on the bolster. This is just something I like to do and kind of roll out into my back. But some people, it kind of depends on your clothing, I think, that it slides. So if you've got something that it sticks to, that works great. But if you don't, it ain't gonna work. So hands behind your head is helpful. It just kind of pushes into my upper back, way above the kidneys. You might glide down a little bit. If you've used a foam roller, this is a little bit similar, but the pressure is kind of interesting. It's going to wad up your shirt though, if you do too much. Roll to the left side, Another thing you could play with the balls if you're just working with your therapy ball and your abdominals, you could lie in your bolster just like this and just kind of do a little bit of rolling work to massage into the ribs, the digestive tract, right? Because it's going to be pushing right into that area, the side. It's kind of nice. I enjoy that. So let's go into what's really what we're doing. So ball on the inside of the right knee. Lean in. Yeah, if we were to videotape you, if you want to be, each week we can choose. You probably shift a little different on one side to the next, depending on the relationship in your hip bone, in your waist, in your shoulder. It's really interesting. So, you know, be a little bit of a scientist to yourself. Like, oh, maybe this side of the sand just splats down a lot easier. Maybe the tone is different on the second side. So when you do move your limbs, the lower limb, the upper limb, right, the middle of the body greatly, right, advances in its circulation, right? So that's going to be towards the organs, the heart, the lungs. So if you get out of breath in this kind of stuff, or you try to teach it to somebody and they are, right, just respect that it is a little bit of a pull for the breathing muscles. There's tension required here to do this, to strengthen them. So just take it slow, right? If it's easy for you, then maybe you advance a little bit, right? So the hand could reach up to the wall. You might be entirely uninterested in that. So your arm might be open, your head rolls to the back. Your arm might be down the side. Just manage that gentle movement of the chest, the ribs, and the front of that bottom. Well, actually, not the, what is the bottom leg that reaches back, isn't it? Now, if it's always a tight spot, right, the hip flexor, that's something you maybe notice more than other things. You know, this one, make sure that you really do lie on your side a little bit, right? You're not rolling too much on the back, and see if you can move the tailbone a little bit under. Use that inner wisdom of circulation in the pelvis. Okay, not trying to push the leg farther back, but moving the tailbone under. So parts of the pelvic floor feel kind of openness, the back area feels pressure, and then feel if you can let that right leg stretch a little farther back. Caution on the knee, right? If it strikes the knee, put the ball closer under the inside of the knee, or don't go so far. Okay? Give it a few more breaths. Relax the pelvis. Don't try to push the tail in one way or the other. Just let it reset here. Okay. All right, now with the waist, just stretching down with the sand. Sand is great for this. Right? Feel what it's like if you try to roll a little bit back with the sand pulling the tissues. But it naturally kind of takes the threads, gives them this gradual length. Maybe it just feels like weight. That could be true. Heat. Okay, so from this would be really considered a twist, right? But we're getting into the category of back bends here. Starting to guide from side spaces to back bends, which is opening front spaces. So let's just let the sand fall off as it goes. And then as you roll back to the left hip, now I tend to, since there's a bolster underneath, and that's the obvious physical big thing, I tend to just feel like I'm physically rolling to the bolster, but try to feel your left hip press and then come up. This is a nice way to work if you have kind of issues in the hips, though, because the bolster kind of takes over from you feeling that pressure. So roll on up. You're already up. Okay. Hope we're doing okay. Yeah? Okay. Blaze okay? All right. So I guess we're okay. We okay. Take take on the wall. Here we go, wall. All right. Take a wide stance. Okay, Upavista Konasana. You could sit on a blanket stack. Why not? Why not get some blankets in here? Let the feet stretch out, wide stance. If this is a little scary on the knees, just put blocks under them. It's pretty easy to use the blocks. And then the bolster is actually going to push into the wall at the base, and you're going to lean it. Okay, what I like about the blocks is if I don't have them, my knees are going to spin in. If I got my blocks, these knees ain't spinning. These knees ain't going anywhere. They're just popped up. So lean forward. Feel the natural arch. Avoid this rounded spine. I don't even want to show it, but try to keep that. If you're not close enough to the wall, get closer so you can achieve it. This is certainly a great way to work with the back muscles as we get into our bridge poses coming up. So I'm not a huge fan of the feeling of the block, I'll have to admit, but if I slide them in under my thigh and kind of contour the block a little bit, it does make it a world better for the pressure on my skin. I feel like I'm taking baby steps using my blocks, but so be it. So now feeling where the arms are reaching, there's kind of a splayed feeling, right, with the legs. Okay, now when you come back up through center, okay, inner thighs have a little spark of sensation. So we'll take the bolster and let's move our thighs in, and we're going to place our feet on top of the bolster, but our bolster is right against the wall. Okay, so let's try this. One blanket down, only one to use. All right. Okay. I say put your feet on the bolster, but I am going to have you put your feet on the floor in a moment besides it. So get close enough that if you were to straighten your legs, you know, you could touch the wall with your feet. So that means don't get too close. We'll find out. Okay, find the feet on the ground. Okay, now this is a little different, right? We'll just try it. So the feet are pushing. Okay, remember we had the soles of the feet pushing together a while ago. Okay, so I want you to feel the feet push. The feet are in a wide stance, and knees point out a little bit. We're definitely in the new path of yoga's teaching right now. It's let the knees go, let them go out. Now push down into the feet and lift the hips up. And I want you to lift the hips up enough. And the hands are down besides the hips. Okay. Try to march up on your bolster. March on up. March on up. Okay. It's fun to do the marching back and forth, but maybe we don't want to have fun like that. So hips are lifting, and then as you lower the spine, you're going to track the breath focus. So my knees are a little bit apart, but obviously they're apart, but they're turning out a little bit versus squeezing a ball. Okay. So as you breathe in, belly full, belly moves down and up. As you exhale, you're going to push into the feet and lift the hips up. So diaphragm, of course, we don't need to tell it what to do because it's not going to listen. Okay, so inhale, belly full, spine down. Okay, try it with the ball. Okay, or if you don't have a ball, use a block. Bring the knees, so hold on to the ball. Between the ball is right between my knees. Okay, so inhale, right, I'm not squeezing the ball. Belly full. Ball is full. Okay, exhale, squeeze, and lift. Okay, so we're trying to just track the breathing and the movement of the breath. So as I lower down, belly full. And as I exhale, squeeze the ball, just the right amount. So the inner thighs feel that tone. Okay, so now let's move with the arms a little bit. If it's getting to be, I got to get back to basics. Let go of squeezing, belly full, and then squeezing, reaching the arms back. Okay, now taking a few more times with that alternating pattern of movement. And perhaps maybe you don't have to worry if you're doing it exactly right. You're in the motion. But the key would be that when I lengthen down, I'm not squeezing the ball. That could be what's helpful for you. Because likely when you squeeze the ball, the core contracts. So taking a couple more times. And now last time, and just let that be it. We'll bring the knees to the chest, and I want you to take the ball off to the side and grab onto a block. I like one leg. It changes any given day. But I'm going to lift the hips up and slide the block under the back of my pelvis. So my one block is like this, right? It's horizontal. I just slide it under the back of the pelvis. It's kind of like our first pose, and we had the block here, right? But we had bolster here, right? So we had a little advantage there, didn't we? Now, I'm trying to let my feet push into the wall. I do find this important that your feet touch the wall. So if you decide it's just ain't working for me, for whatever reason, you can always pass on, push a little farther back, get the feet to the wall, but try to have the lower leg parts on the bolster. And then this front zone, you can place your sandbag on top of the thigh lids. Yeah, it's a little different lift because we have more inverted quality than the first pose we did today because my chest is farther back and down. I don't have a bolster underneath, right? The blanket could be a little intrusive on your neck. You can always go minus. And you can always make the blanket a little bit lower, but not as high as initially, just around the very center of the back of your head, right? You want the neck to have its natural curve. So arms ideally would be out, straight out or down by the sides. I mean, you see them all over with teachers these days, but try to find that it's ideally this is to be going in the end of practice for where we're at today. So beginning to calm the heart, to soothe the heart. Think about this as regenerative for the heart health. So if my arms are above my heart, heart rate's gonna go up. It's a kind of the emergency response. So roll the shoulders down and in and open up the chest. And just feel the belly move with the breath. And the belly movement might be a little slight because you're pulling it along this kind of rack, right? You're stretching it taut. So to feel it pump is kind of hard. It's already getting it full stretch. So you're giving it more stretch when you move the belly. Right? More range, a little more supple. Right? Strong belly, right, is a soft belly. Soft belly is a strong belly. Just scan the feeling in the front leg, right, top thigh area. And I want you to let that pull over to stretch the hip. So you decide, do you want to put your feet on the bolster for that hip one? Let's do one thing before it though. Or do you want your bolster on the side to cross over? There's a few of you that would probably prefer your bolster under your feet. So, or maybe at least one or two, I know that might. So as you slide the sand aside, get the ball under your left buttock first. Gotta massage your glute. Okay, so press and roll. We're gonna do both glutes, so don't forget them. No glute forgetfulness. Glute free. So as I move, I'm pushing. I might find that it goes over to the sacrum or down and in, and then I find it difficult to move it to the other glute without my hand, but I've seen some people be able to glide it across. So finding your tactile ways of pressure into the ball and movement. It's all about the pelvis and the hip moving. You got to push into the ball. You got to use that as a massage. So, right, massage is pressure plus movement, flushing the tissues. You're gliding across the tissue. If you decide I just like this rolling thing, I don't really want to do the hip crossover, you can just keep rolling and do a little bit of hip crossover. So what's the benefit, right? I would find that this moving fluids in and around the tissue is very beneficial. So I like this. I'm finding it to be a benefit. So as I lower down to my sacrum, I'm going to take that left leg. Now I like to put my leg over on a bolster. That's my preference. Some of you will find this works okay. Your left leg crosses over the right leg, your knees swing to the right, your bolster's under your feet. You put the ball here and the sandbag here. Perfect. Some of us are going to say, oh, no, I've been good with this one. I like this change. So the bolster on the side of your mat, your right knee bends. Now, one thing you might notice about this is you might get into this habit of trying to straighten your right leg. But if you see the other one, which is kind of what we always used to do, the bottom leg is bending. There's no straight bottom leg. That would be kind of not the best thing maybe for your spinal column to feel that at the base, the pressure. I'll just try being curved. Focus on the curves, the contours, and your body will be happier, right? So taking sand up to the outer left thigh. I prefer my blanket to be higher for this one. The bridge pose, it was fine to be low. I want to have a little bit more contour in my neck, but for some of you, you're going to think, no, I like the flat. Plenty of teachings have no blanket under the head. So personal choice. Sand on the side of the thigh is great. I like to feel like it's almost dropping off because then I feel the pressure, to be honest, a little bit in my vertebrae, like it's a little tug. So just that little bit of resistance. But some of us, just sand is going to be close to the knee or the hip. Relax. Take a few moments here. Feel the twist. Feel how the waist has kind of roamed now. All these different ways. I know we did a lot of kind of brushing movement through the core. Maintenance work. Body maintenance practice. We're feeling where the shoulder is relaxing. The bottom leg might decide to bend more or bend less. Really visualize. I can't tell you what to visualize, but this right hip, right, the right hip bone, just feel where it touches down. Feel like there's areas in there to stretch too, right? So this is right, correct. So the left hip is getting that motion along the side. So you're going to try to recreate that on the second side. So as you move the sand, I like to be put on the floor, not on my belly, personally in between, but you choose. So take the ball out. If you have your feet on the bolster, you might windshield wiper the knees. I kind of think that feels pretty good. Remember, avoid bringing the knees to the chest, right? You'll have a buzzer will go off. The sacrum will be shocked. That's the idea, is it shocks the sacrum. Okay, so if your leg is crossing over, those of you with feet on bolster, knees to the left, go for it. Some of us, right leg swings over the bolster, ball to the sacrum, sand on the right outer thigh. And as you keep that support onto the hip, right, your chest is turning to the right, opening. It might feel like the other side, it did feel like it was pulling, in the back area, like spinally. This side, it might be like, well, I feel my waist, or I feel my hip, or it's just a different thing. So it is two sides of a body to try to organize. So just take your time to feel around the differences. And every time you come to practice, you can see what's feeling. Maybe just you feel circulation, but maybe finding where you can create balance. Part of it is just doing one side, the next side. Balance comes. Now feel that you use your breath as a stretching tool here. You can almost visualize the heart, the waist, the hip. It's trying to expand on the inhale. And it's usually just the abdominal area that gets the movement, but it probably resonates in the hip. It's got to have some effect, right? That if there is some movement that you're achieving with your breath inside. The breath is not for the outside. You got to have the outside to breathe, but it's for the inside, right? Your breath is for your insides. So just let it play along. It can calm us. Okay, now taking the ball or the sand first, up to you. Yeah, maybe next time you switch it up with the ball or sand first. But now we'll keep it simple with the sacrum, so I still like to visualize that length in my back because I need it for getting my legs upside down. You need the length. If you push the knees to the chest, it will compress again. So I want to keep that length in my back. And then I'm going to slide my blanket down. Even if you're kind of warm enough right now, you still might like to have another blanket. You never know. If you prefer to get upside down without the bolster under your hips, that's okay. Some people find one blanket is plenty. 2 blankets, you choose. But sit to the wall and get on the side of your bolster, right on the edge. You've got to be kind of like, it looks like it's a teeter-totter at this point, right? It's like up on that one side. And then you roll, and sometimes like right now, I could roll on the other side pretty quickly. And you just try to do the best to get the legs up the wall. It's legs up the wall, not legs imprinted on the wall. If your rear makes a print on the wall, okay, but it's not required. You know, and so the feeling of that reverse action might be the most important part, like that you feel in the sand. It could be nice. Some people like to be weightless in their legs, not to have sand on them, because it is like the forces, right? Just like when you stand on your feet. So you choose. If you decide to be weightless in the legs, you can always take your belt around your ankles and let the feet stretch out, and then you feel supported but weightless. That's a good option too. Well, that's option 2. So blanket could be on your core. Eye pillows are wonderful for this one. And we're into Viparita Karani. So let's take our final circulation event here. Feel where if you have the blanket or if you have some other weight you want to put on your core, I think the blanket's the perfect weight. It's definitely not intrusive, and it feels kind of like you're almost swallowing. There's an idea you could swallow your core. I don't think I'm going to get back up and swallow myself here. All right, the shoulders are rounding in their back area, so the chest can move gently open, arms below the level of the heart. And if the feet start to feel cool right away, you know the work is happening. It's like that. It's the reverse action back to the heart. So the heart doesn't have to pump the blood down to the feet reverse it back to the heart. Venus return, right, it's called. So if the spine can feel its nice arch again, if you feel a little slippy on the bolster, like it's dropping back to the back of the heart, that's okay. Just accepting that inner environment, receiving all that circulation to the skin cells of the face. If you're just getting out of having had congestion or anything, you might really spend the energy on kind of evaluating, clearing out. resting the facial muscles, ribs moving. Take about 3 more cycles of breath. Slow it down. Exhale completely. Now maybe tune into the heart, the pulse there that you can sense the rhythm. It's really the rhythm maker in the body, right? Your heart rate. Just let it slow down on its own, just from this shape. Now, as you bend the knees, you'll just shift your feet a little bit away from the wall. And some people find this feels better than having the feet at the wall. I imagine if you've got some knee stuff, this might feel better. Just moving them away from the wall. It's a pretty strict amount of circulation on inner and outer knee. If your knees are kind of squeezing and turning towards each other, really try to get that lift of the heels, flex the feet, separate the knees a little bit, strengthen the adductors, right? Their hip muscles. So try to get that strength there. And you might even touch the thighs and go, yep, they are awake. Those adductors are waking up. Okay. Now, as you bend the knees, if the blanket on your belly is bugging you, you can move it. I like it pressing into my tummy. It's a nice little extra pressure point. Sand goes aside. Hug the legs so you get that natural stretch in the back like you wanted a couple poses ago. But of course, you do what you need to do anytime. Take a few moments. Rocking. If you're lucky to have that blanket, it's a nice little wedge. Interesting massage into the digestive tract. All the way up to your chest, right? You can almost feel that pressure in your breathing. Okay, now as you roll to the side, just let your arms roll with you. Back arm, feeling front. Yeah, because the arms come from you can feel their reach from the back. So come on up with the arms, hugging yourself. Just reach the arms across the chest. And I feel they help us twist and just move a little turning right to left. Twist through the back. And bring the hands together, interlace those fingers, rounding, upper back. And just find a moment of focus in yourself with this community practicing. Bring the hands to gentle pressure in front of the heart. In breath. And on an out breath, bowing into that space behind your heart. And gratitude. Thank you. Namaste.